All right, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Schwartz. I'm with Gun Owners Radio, and this is Lead Talks. So, what we do here is every Monday night at 7 p.m. we stream an instructor, a firearms instructor from San Diego, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, somewhere in Southern California, that is here to talk about some kind of concept, some kind of history, something important to them about firearms, some kind of philosophy or something that's interesting and specific to them. And you get to listen and you get to be introduced to a whole new set of instructors. So if you don't train now, you're going to get to find an instructor to train with. Or if you train with some folks already, then you're going to get to be introduced to a whole new crop of people that you may want to train with. Tonight, very, very interesting. Somebody I really enjoy, a friend of mine, somebody who I find extremely interesting. Matthias Quellenberg is going to talk about his journey as a foreigner from Germany into the world of firearms, right? Is that an accurate?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Great, perfect. Then without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks for the intro, Mike. Mike said it. I'm from Germany originally. I came over to the States about 15 years ago now. And let me give you a little bit of background about how I grew up in Germany. Well, not so much how I grew up, but what the situation is in Germany regarding firearms, weapons in general, and gun rights. Short story, we don't have any. Okay, so Germany does not have a Second Amendment. There is no other country that has a Second Amendment like the United States has. Gun ownership is possible in Germany, but it is very, very difficult. There are so many rules and so many laws that make it really, really hard. And on top of that, it is extremely expensive. Most people in Germany are never exposed to firearms in real life. What we know about firearms, we get from Hollywood. And that's not always an accurate representation. I mean, I grew up with 1980s action movies, um, missing in action movies, or Commando, or Rambo, that sort of stuff. That's where we learn what guns are like and what they're for and how they're used and what it looks and sounds like when they're used. And Hollywood is not an accurate representation of that, as I have learned later. So most people in Germany and in many, many other countries are not exposed to firearms the way we are in America. My first real life experience with firearms came when my dad took me to the armory at the barracks. He was in the army. He served for 35 years in the German army. And every once in a while, he was able to bring me along. I think my brother went once or twice too. And he would show us the armory, let us handle a couple of things. And then when I got older after high school, we had a draft at the time in Germany. So males over 18 had to serve a period of time in the armed forces. You could pick your branch, and you could make a wish list of where you want to be stationed and what you want to do. It's not guaranteed you get that, but my dad pulled some strings and put me in a couple of positions that I thought might be beneficial for me later on. But I still had to go through boot camp, and that's where I shot my first gun when I think I was 20 years old. A P1 was the first gun that I've ever shot. You go through boot camp, which is 3 months long. Then you do your a little bit of a special training, and then you're put in the position that you're going to be in. In Germany, if you're drafted and you do your military service, you will not get deployed. Okay, so I don't have any combat experience in the army. That's not a thing. When your service is over, you're out and you're automatically enlisted in the reserves, but you don't have to go back and serve regularly. So for the period of time that you're in the army, and not everybody went, and by now we've abolished military service altogether, although they're talking about bringing it back. Um, and there was a long period where I had no exposure to firearms. And at first, I never thought I would end up in America. So I never gave it another thought for years. And then life happened, and I ended up over here. I spent 5 years in Boston, one in San Francisco, and the rest down here. once there was a law change in I think 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was a consequence of the McDonald decision. Um, from then on, legal residents, lawful residents, were able to own firearms and get a license to carry. Um, that was in 2012. That's about when I got a green card. So that's the first thing I did. I went out and got my license to carry in Massachusetts. Bought my first gun, and then I was a gun owner and I carried. The training was so um, insignificant, I want to say. I don't even remember what we all did. I don't even remember if it included live fire. If somebody's from Massachusetts, they might be able to remind me. I don't even remember it. Um, and then I started walking around with a gun on me until I left Massachusetts. And then, I was in California, good cause at the time. I never bothered for the longest time until I myself became an instructor. So that um, I kind of slid into that by accident. I was an Uber driver, and during the time of the George Floyd riots, I had a lot of people in the car that talked to me about, if it came up organically, that asked me questions about firearms. I want to get one. I feel I need to protect myself. Can you advise me? What do I need to do? So between 2012 and then, a lot of time had passed, and I'd gotten some more training. I'll get into that later, because that was a scary time when I was carrying without having any training. I know that now, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Um, so I had taught in the Army as a boot camp instructor eventually. And then whenever friends and family came over from Germany, they were all curious. They wanted to see, and I took so many people shooting. I went myself to the gun range, and I decided, you know what, there's demand for this. Let me see if I can help people and become an instructor, and you know, push people into the right direction on the right path to safe gun ownership. So during that time, after I became a gun owner, a firearms instructor, not when I became a gun owner, when I became a firearms instructor, that's really when I did a lot of research, a lot of training myself, or prior to that, leading up to that. And I did a lot of reading. There's a lot of laws you need to know. It's um, a lot of material, a lot of very interesting material. But the difference between us immigrants as gun owners and born Americans as gun owners is that we don't grow up with this. We don't get the opportunity to grow into a gun culture, to be exposed to it early on with our dads or grandpas plinking in the backyard or on BLM land or some farm property of a neighbor or something like that. We don't get that. When we come to America as immigrants, we, and not all of us obviously, but the ones that do, we make a very conscious decision to want to become gun owners. Either it's an interest, it's a necessity, it's a hobby, it's whatever the reason might be. For most of us, or pretty much all of us, immigrant gun owners who have no experience with firearms, for the most part, um, we have to make a conscious choice to want to be gun owners. Whereas a lot of Americans, and I'm talking about, born and raised Americans, have the benefit of being able to draw from the experience of previous generations. Um, that is something that we don't have. I would say that is the biggest difference between immigrant gun owners and born and raised American gun owners. So with the Hollywood background, I had a license to carry and I just started carrying. I heard a little bit about, judicious use of lethal force and all that sort of stuff during the training class. I don't remember how long that class was. I don't think it was 8 hours. Um, and then I carried. And I got to say, for a while, I carried, I don't want to say recklessly, but not with the amount of knowledge that I have now. And I got to say, in hindsight, it's scary. I'm very, very glad I never had to use the gun. I've never had to brandish it at that time. And because that would have not worked out in my favor. So as an instructor now that I know that and that I can compare what I didn't know before with what I know now, I always make it such a big point to tell people, get the training, stay on the training. Even now, twice a month, I take a class with another instructor, who, by the way, doesn't know that I'm also an instructor because I don't want them to treat me any differently than the other students. Um, and for me, because I'm an instructor and because I felt like I had to network a little bit and get to know the industry, I sort of slid into the gun community. That also happened a little bit by accident. I've told some of you might know the story how I got to know San Diego County gun owners. I saw this little ad, I think on Instagram or on Facebook or something. Sign here to our newsletter and have the chance to win gun prom tickets. So I had no idea what that was. I read over it real quick and I clicked on something and signed up for the newsletter. And then I forgot about it. Many, many weeks later, I got this totally non-suspicious email that said, "Hey, you won, click on this." So of course I clicked on it, and turns out I had won the tickets for gun prom after signing on for the newsletter. I showed up at gun prom. Rich had my tickets, put me at the media table where I met some really interesting folks. I met Ursula Williams, I met John Petrolino and Charlie Cook, riding shotgun with Charlie, among other people. And that really is how I got into the gun community. I didn't know anybody else who shoots. Um, I mean, sort of. I wasn't a member at a gun club, but that was just me going there. I became an RSO. I made friends with some of the other RSOs that share my duty days, all that sort of stuff. And then from there on, it really took off. And man, I tell you, the amount of people I've met and the amount of knowledge I have gained from those people is incredible. I didn't know what I was missing before. San Diego County Gun Owners is really the catalyst for my entry into the gun community. I have been to gun prom every year since. I have volunteered for San Diego County Gun Owners. I've done research. I've read articles. You know, I'm in touch with a lot of the folks that I've met. I'm still in touch with John Petrolino, Charlie Cook, all sorts of people that I'm connected with on social media now, all because I won those silly gun prom tickets that one year. And otherwise, I would have not known where to start. I would have not known who is the gun community. How do I get into this? I'm really, really happy it happened like that because I would have not had the resources to even ask who is the gun community? Where do I find these people? And the the interesting part is the gun community is so incredibly diverse. There are people from all creeds and all colors and all parties part of the gun culture across the country. Um, I'm really, really happy that I slid into that sort of by accident. I've been to GRPC. I've met so many interesting industry people. I've met Masada Ayub, who's super friendly, super nice. He's like probably the biggest gun celebrity that I've ever seen. John Korea, one of the most successful YouTube channels. A chick who shoots. So many people, and they're all super nice. They are all so very friendly. Or if you remember last week's episode with Brady, how he's mentioned, I've met him as well, and we're in touch on social media, and we've met in person. How he mentioned that his idol is Mike DeSargo. I've met Mike too. Super nice people. Everybody is so down to earth. Everybody is so willing to share knowledge and resources and insights. Um, the gun community is really the greatest place I've ever been in. Hands down, there's so many nice people. Um, On top of that, I have found out that when you go to rallies, to events, to political events, to any type of um, activism, the type of people you see there are the ones that can afford to engage in activism, that have the time, that have the resources. And sometimes you meet people that just attend to get informed. They cannot, unfortunately, be as active as some other people because of a lack of resources. Um, but everyone is so willing to share. Everybody is so friendly. When I go to the gun range, everybody lets you, not everybody, but a lot of people let you shoot their guns. Somebody has something exotic and they know you're curious. So many people offer, that's how I shot my first black powder, for example. And I want to encourage everybody to at least get their feet wet, show up at a meeting, get to know people in the gun community, reach out to somebody, um, go to gun prom. That's my favorite event of the year. Um, the gun community is super, super diverse. But one thing I have noticed is that the people you see most, that are most visible, and if anybody disagrees with me, I'll see it in the comments later, I'm sure. I have found the people that are most visible is a very homogenous crowd. Okay, there are some groups that try to break that stereotype, but it's a lot of white folks. It's a lot of stereotypical gun owners that you see. But I know for a fact that is not the entire gun community. I've met so many immigrant gun owners who mostly choose to practice their Second Amendment rights on the range, in private, at home. They're not as outspoken, mostly. Doesn't apply to everybody, of course. But man, there are some interesting stories there. I've met people from the Soviet Union, from Vietnam that came, during the war, from Venezuela, Mexico. There's so many interesting stories from people all over the world who came to America and then chose to become gun owners. It is a really, really interesting crowd if you go in and get to know these people. The amount of knowledge that I have absorbed from all these people is incredible. I would have never been able to do what I do now without having met a lot of these people. And everybody is so friendly, everybody is welcoming, everybody shares resources and knowledge. I've met, people on the range, I met people privately, I hang out with people on social media now. Um, and I feel like the gun community, if you're not into guns, and even then, if you are into guns, the actual community, like San Diego County gun owners, like some of the instructors you meet online, those are all human beings. Those are all people. They all put their pants on one leg at a time, and they're all willing to share. So anybody out there that has no idea where to start, call up an instructor, ask to tag along to something. If anybody asks me, I'm willing, I'm always happy to bring people to the meetings, give recommendations on where to train, who to train with. If they're looking for something that I'm not an expert in, I refer people. So I don't know another field that is as diverse and as welcoming as the gun community. Now, for some people, they find this community elsewhere. For me, uh, my cause is the Second Amendment. If you're a journalist, your cause is probably the First Amendment. You know a lot about the challenges that you face there. That's not my focus. My focus is the Second Amendment. And we all work towards the same goals. And I have to say, it's a great crowd to be in. And all of this happened by accident, more or less. And my life is richer for it. I love the gun community. Everybody there is amazing. And I want to say to everybody who doesn't know where to start, ask me, ask Mike, San Diego County gun owners, whoever you know, tag along and see it. Come to the range, go to a meeting. It's My life is much richer because of the people in the gun community. Turn it back over to you, Mike.
I think that's awesome. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and having you as a part of the gun community is a real pleasure. You're so enthusiastic and so professional and curious, and you want to do good things for good people, and I think that that's amazing. So what do you think that do you think that there is like a I mean there's clearly a cultural difference between Germany and the United States, but when
Yeah.
it comes to firearms, how would you describe the attitude between Germans and I don't even know if there's a typical US attitude towards firearms. I think that it's very very split, and there's probably five or six different attitudes towards firearms in the US. But what would you say? How would you say it is in Germany as far as the attitude towards firearms ownership?
So let me first talk about what I've experienced about American gun ownership and the attitude. Um, the attitude there is very diverse. There are some people you see YouTube clips, somebody is, idiots with guns, where people are drinking when they're shooting, where people, shoot from cars and they do, all sorts of stupid things and somebody gets hurt. Um, I'm sure that happens in many parts of the country, but those are viral clips that go around. That's not everybody. That's certainly not the people that I've experienced. The people that I've experienced handle guns very responsibly, very safe. Um, Always 100% of the time observe the rules, gun safety, and the lawful gun ownership. So it's very, I don't know, can you say structured? Maybe it's very, um, I don't know the right adjective for it, but
In
respectful
in
and in a positive way.
in the US, it's very respectful, or
Yeah,
yeah,
for the most
I
part, what
agree.
I've experienced, absolutely. Now in Germany, I don't know if there really is an attitude because people don't usually have the opportunity to even handle firearms. There might be a mindset towards firearms, and I was one of those people at one point because in Germany, without a gun culture, we depend on what we get fed from media outlets, and that is a very one-sided representation. It's mostly restrictive, mostly anti-gun, not only anti-gun, anti-weapons. I mean, even knives is difficult in Germany. That's very, very, there's a lot of rules and laws about anything that can be a weapon, blades, firearms, clubs, billy clubs, you name it. It is not allowed.
So,
So
is there to your knowledge or in your memory, there's not like a longing for weapons or firearms. There isn't a movement, or there isn't a small group of people that are trying to fight for firearms ownership, or is it like it just doesn't even exist?
I can't say I know that the answer to those questions. I don't know if there's a movement towards firearm ownership. Um, Believe it or not, Germany is actually the most armed country in Europe. We have a population of about 85 million people that share 5 million guns. Ooh, 5 million. But it's the most armed country in Europe. However, most of those are hunting guns or heirlooms or antiques. There's not a lot of people that have modern firearms. Maybe, armed security for armored transports or stuff like that. Executive protection. You can get a job in those fields but forget about carrying privately. You can't do that. I know several people who are police officers, including my brother. And when he was a patrolman, he left his fire. He would have been able to carry, but he left his firearm at the police station after work because it's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon
Yeah.
by the
Oh yeah,
department, or by people, or who frowns
by
upon it?
the department.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean the people wouldn't know if you carry. You do carry concealed as a police off-duty police officer, but hardly anybody does it, from what I understand. It's not a thing because if you wanted to establish something like the Second Amendment in Germany from one day to the next, that wouldn't work because we don't have the respect for firearms that you in America have learned from, an early age. you would have to introduce it little by little over several generations. Otherwise, I don't think it will work in Germany.
Well, I think you're right. I got to tell you, the four basic rules is a very American thing. And what made me realize that is I was at a lecture once. I was at it was actually a kind of an intro class, and they had a guest there who was from a foreign military, and he was giving a demonstration, and he had a rifle. It was unloaded, but he flagged every single one of us, muzzled every
Mhm.
single one of us. And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute," you know. And
Yeah.
that whole treat every gun as if it's loaded, finger off the trigger, don't point it at anything you're not willing to destroy, know your target, what's beyond. That was totally a foreign concept to this guy.
Yeah. And
So I
my
can
kids
totally, I
grow
can
up with
totally see
that.
that.
My kids grow up with that, you know. And did you know that about 25% of the US population is either first or second generation?
I didn't know that. Wow, 25%, one in four.
25% of the population is either first or second generation. Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of, I've had many conversations with you about it, so I kind of know the answer, but there isn't it there just doesn't seem to be much of a conversation at all in Germany about firearms unless they're kind of criticizing the United States for it, kind of an occasional news story of, yet another crazy shooting in America kind of thing. Am I
Yeah.
describing that accurate? Otherwise guns just aren't mentioned at all. It just doesn't get talked about.
So what in Germany, and I'm sure this is true for many other countries, what I never knew until I got here is that gun ownership in America is a human right, is a basic human right, gun ownership. That doesn't apply to, in Germany, they don't recognize that as a human right. You have a right to free speech, you have a right to, work wherever you want or travel freely, but gun ownership is not a right in Germany. And that's probably where the disconnect is because, over here it's a fundamental human right, and over there it's a privilege. On top of that, it's mostly for hunting, and that is very, very ritualized, very expensive. So if anybody has a gun, it's probably upper class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your talk. Anything else? Any parting words? Anything that you want people to definitely take away from? I think you did an extremely good job of getting your message across. But what's the last couple of sentences? What should people, now that they've heard your talk, what should people do? What action should they take?
Um, I think everybody should have an open mind if you're not already a gun owner and you come from a foreign country and you're not used to gun ownership. Have an open mind, explore it, find somebody that you know who is a gun owner. There's a lot of closeted gun owners, so you might know more gun owners than you think. Um, and just try it out, experience it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you end up liking it, you would have never known what you're missing.
Great. And how do people get a hold of you if they want to train with you?
Most everything I do over Instagram, San Diego Firearms School. You can call me on the phone. It's 619-601-8909. If anybody needs just some advice on how to get a CCW, I'll do that for free. But I'm always happy when I can help.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much. Matthias Quellenberg, thanks for spending the evening with us. Appreciate your time, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Bye.
And don't forget to watch Gun Owners Radio on YouTube, youtube.com/Gun Owners Radio every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. Thank you and have a good night.